Hey everyone, I am getting on here to answer some of the questions that I've been asked about the way we do ACE homeschool. The one that I was going to address first is how often do you score and put the green check marks? I've told you guys about the green check mark that I put at the bottom of the page after I score it. So one huge amazing thing about ACE is your kids get to score their own work. This is something that I feel like is really important and imperative to the way ACE does stuff, and it's something I really want my kids to learn. I'm not raising them to be kids, I'm raising them to be adults. I want them to grow up and be responsible adults. So as I'm delegating things and as I'm going through the ACE way of doing things, there's several things that I find very important, and we each have to find what's important about whatever curriculum we're using. One thing that I love is the kids score their own pace. So when you get an ACE pace, any of them, they come with score keys. I start my kids scoring it in 3rd grade. So here's actually a high school pace, business math, for one of my kids. And when they score it, they go up and they score it. And then when they're done with it for the day or before any checkup, they turn it into me. And how they do that is they put it inside the score key like this, and it just kind of marks the spot. And then I'll have a pile of these that I try to keep very small. Sometimes unsuccessfully with 6 kids, it piles up quite heavily. So I go through, and then as I score it, they circle the bottom of the page when they're done, and that says, "Mom, I am completely done. Everything on this page is correct." So when I go through and score it, I put a green check mark next to it saying, yes, everything is correct. If they miss something, we call it a scoring mistake because it's something that they didn't find when they scored. And I'll flip over to page 1 and I'll write the page number of whatever mistake they had. So I'll put a sticky note on page 1 and then it'll say page 3. So they have to take their pace and their score key, go back to page 3, rescore the entire thing, and find the mistake. I have shared this method of doing school with several business people, and they've just been really giving me a good perspective of how that's what they do. One is a current engineer in the oil fields, and she said, I have to catch all of my mistakes, and if I don't, I get in so much trouble. She said, so this is phenomenal that your kids are learning to catch their own mistakes. With this, if they make 10 mistakes, so I just, it'll say page 3, page 9, whatever. If they make 10 mistakes in one pace, they erase the whole pace and they do it again, because there's no reason in 37 pages that they should make 10 mistakes. Now, if it's a comma or a period or a spelling error, I sometimes count those as half of a mistake, but sometimes it's like the answer should have been George and they put Tom or something. It's something very obvious that they should catch, and if they're just not being careful enough, they know it's going to cost them. But they have 10 times in each pace before it costs them, so a lot of times we don't even get to that. So the way we do that is they each score their own paces, then they put it in the box for me. A lot of times they'll tell me if it's something like, oh, I've got to do the self-test in this, so I know that needs to kind of go on the top of the pile. But for the most part, they just put it in there, and then I keep scoring all day as we go along and get it back to them so they have it. With as many kids as I have, I know which ones are the careful scorers and which ones tend to kind of fudge a little bit if it's a hard to score page. So some of my kids, I'll be really diligent with scoring. If it's a huge page to score and I know that they're gonna fizzle out at the end, sometimes I start at the bottom and go up. Sometimes I just know that they're gonna be tempted just to circle the bottom of the page. And with other kids, I know that they are very, very particular, very careful. And sometimes my kids don't know this, so hopefully they won't watch this video, but I'll just put a line instead of a check mark. I'll put a line at the bottom if I'm really overwhelmed that day, so that I know it's something that I kind of glanced over. It looked good. I kind of compared it to the score key, but I didn't do a detail check of it. And then if they're having trouble later, I can go back and be like, oh, this is where we were kind of messing up, which I don't know that I've ever done that, but it kind of gives me just a little bit of leeway in my day with the kids that are very particular about making sure they always score perfectly. It just lets me know, okay, this is a page, it's probably right, but also gives me a chance to come back and know that I didn't score that page super, super carefully for that child. But for the most part, they do their schoolwork, they score it, I check it. I know my tendency as just a child is to, if I can get away with anything, I could, I try and I push that. So I really try to have a high standard for my kids so that when they go on to college or work or anything, they just have a really high standard of excellence, and pushing the envelope or trying to see what they can get by with just isn't in their DNA. So that's how I do it. Not everybody has to do it that way, but that's our method. I did get this idea from our school where they would, I'm not sure if they'd score every page or if they'd score just the checkups. I can't remember, but it was really effective in holding me accountable and making sure I gave my very best. So that's what's working for our family.